Cranking rats. What's the deal? We're gonna find out on today's installment. Roll it. Hey everyone, what's happening? Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Big Fish Synergy. As I said in the intro, we're going to be talking about a subject that not many people touch on, and it's cranking down rats. And this in particular is the Studio Composite RATMAN, an excellent choice for cranking down. Before I get into the specs of this bait, let me just talk about when I utilize this technique. So I think the vast majority of people think about rats as purely wake baits. And, you know, I've seen guys throw them tight to walls, over grass flats, in laydowns, and that's all great. But you're thinking about it purely as a topwater bait. And I think you're limiting the versatility of what these things can really do. Of course, there are some rats that are pure wake baits that will not crank under the surface. One in particular that is an incredible rat is the Johnny rat. That will not crank down. So you've got to do research. I mean, if you're buying from a bait maker, ask them if the rat cranks down. If you're buying from a vendor, shoot them an email. Make sure that the rat cranks down. Don't just go pick up any old rat and assume that it's going to crank under the surface. I like rats that crank down 1 to 3 feet. That's what I'm looking for when I employ this technique. So when do I utilize this? Okay, as I stated, all of those scenarios where you're throwing a rat normally, what happens when you know there's a big female there, but you just can't get her to bite? That is when I crank down. So let me show you the retrieve that I use in this scenario, and then we'll talk about it some more, and then we'll go over the specs of this bait, and then I will show you a catch. Okay, let's talk about this. Normally I'd be paralleling like a shade line like this, right down, but just so you guys can see this more clearly, to where there's some more sun and actually see the retrieve, I'm gonna target that big clump out there. I'm gonna cast beyond it. Okay, the wind took that a little bit, but I'll just work the other side of it. It's fine. Wow, the wind really, that was insane. So I'm gonna work it real slow to where it looks like maybe a bird dropped it. It's injured. Gonna make its presence be known. Just give it a couple twitches. Maybe even walk it a few times like that. Now as I approach this clump, I'm gonna start a slow retrieve to where the tail is barely moving. And I keep the rod tip down for this. Okay, so I'm coming up on the edge of that clump right now. And this is good because there's some smaller clumps of isolated cover on the way in. Okay, so now again, I'm walking it, I'm killing it, and now I'm gonna begin that retrieve, that crank down retrieve where it thinks, where the rat would basically think that it's been had. And I keep it slow and steady, and then 2 pops, then repeat, then slow and steady, and sometimes you will get them to follow it up all the way to the shore, and you'll get meat right at your feet. But they will absolutely envelop that from behind. It's a lot of grass right now. So let's do that again. Just show you the retrieve from a closer angle. Remember, you want to cast beyond the cover. So let's say that this little clump right here is my target. So I'm going to cast beyond it. Let it sit. Give it a couple walks. Let it sit again. And bring it up real slow to that piece of cover. Again, I apologize, there's a lot of wind right now. And then I'm going to start that burn. And then maybe you'll give it a couple twitches, and can see it looks really erratic, like it's been had, and that's when you're gonna get a massive, massive, massive bite from a follower. One more time. Let me just throw it straight out. So check out that shade line right there. Let me just try to compensate for this. Okay. So imagine trying to simulate that the bait has just been dropped in the water by like a big predatory bird. It's struggling for its life. You can dead stick it. Just make sure its presence is known. Sometimes these casts will take 5 minutes for me to bring in. Kill it again, let it stall. When it gets close to that shade line, that's when I'm gonna burn it. Keeping the rod tip down and letting it be erratic. And that's when I get the biggest fish tend to come out of nowhere and absolutely try to crush it with that. So I think that's a really underrated rat retrieve. And again, you gotta be patient with this. You gotta actually put in time. You could take the entire day to get one bite. If you're fishing a rat, you got to just know that you're committing to get an absolutely behemoth bite. And you know, some days you'll catch multiple fish and it'll be crazy. I mean, I've had days where that's the only thing that they'll eat. But other days you might not get a bite. You just got to commit to that mentally and know that you're targeting the biggest, angriest fish in the lake. Okay, so let's just recap real quick. So as you can see in that video, I have my target. I'm throwing beyond the target, and I am usually, I mean, you have to experiment with this again, but I'm usually just killing this rat, letting it soak. Because here is something that a lot of wake baits don't have when they're just staying still and you know, dead stick it. Secondary action. And what do I mean by that? I mean, obviously you have the clack of the, you know, the 2 joints or the 3 joints or the 4 joints, depending on the rat. But you also have this undulating tail that drives bass absolutely insane. We all know bass go crazy for worms, right? Well, they're looking at that from below, and it makes it just look like this thing is alive and it's just hanging out. And you know, if a wind gusts up or the current changes, this thing is moving. So I just let it sit there. I think being patient and not rushing it is such an important trait of rat fishing, and this technique as well. I think too many people fish rats way too fast on top. I think you've got to really fish it to where this tail is barely moving. But that is the first part of this retrieve. So I see my target, I throw beyond it, I let it soak. Then I bring it up really slowly to the target. 2 twitches, 2 or 3 twitches. Kill it again. Let it soak. Begin the process again. 2 twitches, stop, violent crank down. That's when you really want to burn it. So you're burning this thing, burning it to where it doesn't blow out. You got to find the rate for each rat. I mean, getting erratic to where it's turning on its side a little bit, that's fine. That's what you want. You want it to look like it's been had. Then I will stop it, give it 2 jerks, like, you know, like you're walking it, or like a jerk bait type of retrieve, and then start that crank again. And then that's usually where it gets absolutely blown up. And as you saw in my last video in South Carolina, when I was fishing along that one shade line, that's exactly what got that monster 7.08 to bite. That violent crankdown is going to get giants to come out of nowhere, and they'll try to engulf the entire thing from behind. And as you'll see later in this video, that's exactly what happened with this rat. Okay, so yeah, the Studio Composite RATMAN. Check this baby out. Awesome. It's made out of carbon fiber, and obviously the Studio Composite folk are phenomenal carbon fiber smiths. They are known for that. I have all of their reel handles pretty much on all of my rigs, and they make cranking giant fish a breeze. Just really strong, rigid carbon fiber, thick, phenomenal handles. And the rat is pretty much the same thing, just phenomenal workmanship. I believe this comes in at 3 to 3.5 ounces. It might be 3.2 ounces, somewhere in that range. But that is a perfect weight for rats, in my opinion, for bigger rats. I mean, I'm not talking about like your smaller, like the 3-piece PB mouse. This is like a more standard size rat. It's not too big. It's not like a Nezuma XL, but it's still, you know, girthy and it'll get giant bites. And you might be wondering, well, two things that come to mind. Why is it such a good cranking rat? I think it's actually because of this thin carbon fiber bill. That bill makes it do kind of crazy stuff underwater. It's almost like, I don't know if you guys have ever cranked down a 9-inch MS Slammer, or even a 7-inch Slammer, but when you crank that down fast, it'll kind of hunt and go back and forth. That's what this bill makes this thing do. Like, you can get it to stay straight, but if you crank a little bit faster or a little bit slower, it'll do a turn before it goes straight again. And that, I think, is what, you know, that type of unpredictable movement. I mean, think about it when you're fishing a square bill. It's the same thing. You want a directional change to get these fish to bite. So that's why I think this thing has an advantage. And there's really, you know, because of that streamlined body, it's not too thick, it's not too thin. I think it's easy for them to envelop from behind, which is usually how they'll hit it if they're a true giant. Or come up, you know, try to shark attack it, either way. And then you're just getting all hooks. And something else you might notice here are these Studio Composite proprietary twin hooks. These things, I was very on the fence. I didn't even know if I was going to fish them. Oh, and they also come with their proprietary, let me see if I can show you this here, if you can see that. Their oval split ring, also incredibly strong. So I was really on the fence about these hooks. I didn't even know if I was going to fish them, to be honest with you. And then when I caught this one giant and a few fish after it, I was like, man, this might be the best quality of hookup that I've ever seen or experienced. These are like, I would say they're like they're thin wire single hooks, and they are held together with shrink wrap. And I know that Ryugi also does this. They have it's called like a Pierce Twin Brutal, I believe. Another phenomenal double hook like this, but I had never, their wire is thicker, and I kind of like the fact that the Studio Composite wire is thinner, because I think that you're guaranteed to hook up with a fish. Sometimes with that thicker diameter, if it's not really a true giant, you're not getting in, you know, you're not penetrating. And even depending on where they hit it, you know, fish have a lot of, or largemouth bass have very bony mouths. Sometimes it'll just bounce right off of it if they, you know, strike it the wrong way. Again, held together with shrink wrap, so under pressure, these hooks will just, you know, they can move. Look, move in and out and undulate. So you're really not, you don't have the let me show you that one more time here. So look, this won't move. See that? There's flex. I can get them in, out, whatever. So there's not really, the hook points aren't working against each other. I think that is so beneficial, because not only do you have the benefit of having these thin wire single hooks that get incredible penetration, but you are not going to leverage the weight of the fish against you. You're almost guaranteed to land it. Like, I have to experiment with it more. I don't know if they're going to bend out. They don't seem like they will. They seem like they break before they bend out. Again, I'm not saying they will. I just don't have enough time on the water or enough catches yet to really know that. But just from the ones that I've had, they get stuck so hard, it's crazy. One more thing I forgot to mention about this RATMAN. Listen to the knock. So I would say it's more on the higher pitch type sound, just like, you know, with topwaters, certain topwaters like a kick knocker, or, you know, certain square bills. The knock obviously makes a massive difference. Have a couple different ones. Have one that's higher pitch and one that's, you know, lower pitch, and see what they want to eat. I mean, it could vary on a particular day. But that's definitely an attractant that gets these things fired up. And think about what that sounds like underwater. You know, you got this crazy knock happening, the tail going wild, thing undulating, swimming all over the place. I mean, it's enticing for these bigger fish. It's not something they see every day. Really gonna catch them by surprise. As you can see too, I'm fishing that on a decoy X-Snap, and that is 150 pound, the size 4, the highest one. Fish that on pretty much everything. That's the best snap design that I've seen. That's not like a fast lock snap, like a saltwater, you know, clip. I like this way better than the egg snap. I've seen people bend the egg snap out. This, I don't know if you can. It's pretty strong. I mean, I shouldn't say that now. I'm probably gonna be godsmacked now that I said that. So I talked about this in my last video, but what am I fishing it on? Well, I am fishing this, let's see, I just don't want to hit into anything here, on my Lowdown Custom medium heavy, moderate fast. I talked about this in depth in my last video. This is my favorite wake bait rod. Obviously it does other things great too. Anything in the 2.5 to 3.5 ounce range, just phenomenal. It's a moderate fast, so it's, you know, on the stiffer side, but until you get a fish, I mean, you can't really, let's see. Again, I talked about this in my last video and you can see it better, but see that? There's some legitimate moderate bend in there. And when you catch a fish on this thing, it really wakes up. And I have not, I've lost maybe one fish in 5 years of fishing these things, and it was my own fault, just from, you know, not finishing the retrieve and giving the fish a second to, you know, gain momentum. Absolutely phenomenal rod, Lowdown Custom, can't say enough good things about them. Fishing that on an old school Z 2020, and then I have the Studio Composite 102 millimeter. Oh, sorry, mosquitoes get me. 102 RC SC EX Plus 102 millimeter handle. Phenomenal setup. Okay, so now let's watch this catch, and then we'll just have some closing statements. I think you guys are gonna like this one. Awesome. cranking the rat. You gotta be me. Cranking the studio composite rat. Oh my God. Oh my God. Dude. Dude. That's a freaking shot. Guys, just got this guy cranking down the studio composite rat. Gonna get a weight and get this guy back. Look at that, he absolutely killed it. He crushed it. Just cranking it down real fast. That is just unreal. Awesome. Look at this eat. That was crazy, right? That eat really surprised the heck out of me, and it made me give the respect that this technique deserves. I mean, I think I was kind of neglecting it a little bit or not thinking about it enough, but I would think about this rat almost as an oversized square bill. I think in certain applications, it's really, really gonna pay off. Think about all the times you fish a rat after it rains, you know, at night. Think about that, and then think about cranking this as one of your retrieves. If you're not getting bit, don't just give up. Again, I said this earlier in the video, but slowing down with this technique and really, you know, giving it the time and attention that it deserves is absolutely paramount to success. Check out the studio composite stuff. It's phenomenal. You can get this in a few different places. You know what? Shoot me a message. I'll tell you if you have a question about this. I'll tell you where I got it from. I'd love to know what you guys think about this. If anyone else is employing this technique. Again, if you like this type of content, please remember to like and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell to stay up to date with everything Big Fish Synergy. And yeah, drop me a comment. I'd love to hear from you guys. Been getting some good engagement recently. And remember, as I always say, one cast, one bite, one big fish. You know the drill. Get out there, crank some rats, make it happen. Show me the results. Let's go. Peace.